Welcome to Leadership Rediscovered, presented by Shine Consulting. I'm your host, Laura Siebold. Leadership is a journey, not a destination. Our goal with each episode is to interview different leaders to learn more about their leadership journey in the hope of allowing each leader to enhance their overall leadership brand. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Jim Matuga, who is the founder and president of Interaction Media, the host of the Positively West Virginia podcast, Small Business Mastermind series, and most recently, the West Virginia Legislature live stream. Yeah. Jim Matuga, you're a busy man.
Oh, I am.
Welcome to Leadership Rediscovered.
Oh, it's great to be here, Laura. Thank you for the invite.
So the last time we were in the studio together, our roles were reversed.
That's right. I was interviewing you.
Exactly. How the tables have turned.
Yes, they have.
And we had a great conversation, but at one point we really started veering off onto a conversation about leadership. And I think we both really lit up on that one. Yeah. And it's really what led to the creation of this podcast. Yeah. So I'm curious to hear from you. What is your passion around leadership? Why is this topic so important to you?
Well, that is a great lead-in, great question. You know, I am a student of leadership first and foremost, so I am not an expert by any means, but I love learning about it because I believe John Maxwell is one of my favorite leadership gurus, and he always says everything rises and falls on leadership, and I believe that so much. It's apparent in our families, it's apparent in our communities, it's apparent in our government. It's apparent in our world. Let's just say that everything rises and falls on leadership, and that's why I think it's so important.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I know that's one of your favorite quotes. I've heard you say that a few times. And I think it does speak to the responsibility that we have as leaders and the impact that we can have as leaders as well. Yeah. One of the things that I've really been thinking about and reflecting on lately is just the overall definition of leadership and how it is so specific and unique to each leader, each individual. Yeah. And if you go on Amazon and search leadership books, it'll return over 60,000 results, which is just mind-boggling to me. So I'm just curious to hear, what is your definition of leadership?
I'm a simple thinker, and I use one word, influence. And I think that is a really important word because it's not just about influencing people to do something. I'm in marketing. I own a marketing agency. So, of course, we try to influence people, right? Yeah. But influence is a very powerful thing, but it's also a very dangerous thing if you don't use influence responsibly. And so I think leadership to me is all about influence. It's about influencing people that are watching you. I think, more is caught than taught, right? So when you're in a leadership position, whether, it's a youth soccer coach or you're a leader in your church or in your business or even in your family, people are watching you. And so that influence is a very important thing. And so you have to, I think when I talk about influence, I think you have to influence yourself. You have to lead yourself first before you can be a leader in anything. And so I think that influence is very important. So then I kind of flip it on the other side and say, what's influencing me? Right? What am I putting into my brain, into my soul, into my heart? And so I think those things that we are influenced by have a profound effect on how we influence others.
Yeah, that is so true. And it makes me think about how often people end up in leadership roles, and it's oftentimes, from a work context, a corporate context, hey, you're really good at this thing, so now you're going to be a leader of people who do those things without really a lot of education or understanding about what it takes to be a successful leader. And I think a lot of us build our own leadership style and leadership brand based on what not to do, things that we've seen that we're thinking, I don't want to act like that way when I'm a leader.
If I ever get in that position, I'll never do that.
I'll never do that to somebody else.
And then you do it.
Yeah. And sometimes it's almost the what not to do versus what to do. And so I think you're right. If you have the benefit, and I'm fortunate, I've had some great leaders that I've been influenced by, and I'm sure you have as well. Yes. But if we can actually start talking about the positive attributes of leadership and give people an opportunity to learn from other leaders, that's one of the things that I really want to do with this podcast is to shine a light on great leaders to
I
say,
love it. Yeah.
here are some things, some good things to catch, right?
Yeah,
From a leadership
yeah,
perspective.
And you bring up a good point, Laura, because like when we have team meetings here at my company, I try to instill in every one of my team members that they're all leaders. They may not view themselves as a leader, but they are. They're leading something.
Yes.
Right. And most importantly, like I said just a minute ago, you got to lead yourself first. Once you can lead yourself and have the discipline and, be committed to a process of learning and, enriching your wisdom, right? And making sure that you have all the tools that you need and then equipping, yourself and then equipping others to go out in the world and do the things that they're created to do. I think that's really important. Yeah. So again, it definitely in the workplace, but I think across all areas of life, we're all leaders in some capacity. We're also followers. You and I have talked about that before.
Yes, we have. And that's an important attribute to keep in mind as well. I think that does contribute to great leadership, great followership too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What are some things that you've done in terms of your own self-leadership that you think have contributed to your success as a leader?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that. I think the most important thing is acknowledging that I don't know everything. That's the first thing, because I am not an expert on leadership, but I'm a student. Yeah. I am a great student of leadership. I try to learn from people around me, people that I interact with. On my podcast, Positively, I always ask, like, what are the most important leadership lessons you've learned, or what are some important leadership attributes that you think are really relevant today, and I try to glean wisdom from every interaction that I have with somebody, because I'm a curious person, just like you are. I like to ask questions. I like to learn about people. And so I think that's the number one thing, is just to be having a mindset of growth. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. And it speaks to the whole journey, not the destination piece.
Exactly. Yeah. When you said that in the intro, I was like, yeah, that's exactly true.
Yeah.
For sure.
Very good. So take us on your leadership journey. I am very curious to hear, especially your first experience as a leader. Start at the beginning. What was that like for you?
I guess the first realization was in the workplace, right? And it was my first promotion. I was working in West Virginia at the Dominion Post newspaper, and I had been around my peers, and all of a sudden I got this promotion to be a supervisor, a manager in the advertising department, and I was thrust into this position, and I was like, wow, this is cool. I made it, Yes. I got my first management position, and then I got the office with the glass, and I had all these, it was kind of neat because the team that I was leading was all women. And they were all, older than me, I don't mind saying that, but because I was still a kid, and I thought, man, this is going to be so great. Boy, was I in for a rude awakening, because I had no idea what to do. Just like you said, I had been elevated to a position, but didn't have the proper training. I wasn't equipped to go into that leadership position. And so I, I've learned from that, not everybody's ready for that position. You've got to equip people, and you've got to, not necessarily just thrust them into a leadership position. It's something you should grow into, I go back to kind of like the early days of my career, leading myself, talking about that. This is another thing that I think was really important, kind of in that lifelong learning. Was not equipped in my first job. There was no training program. It was, again, the same newspaper. And it was back in the day, we didn't have Google and YouTube to watch. We had nothing like podcasts. There was very few resources to
trial by fire.
But one day I was digging in the closet back in the ad department after everybody had gone home for the night, and I was in there doing some work, and I was digging for something, and all of a sudden I saw these little boxes, and it was like these old cassette tape recordings that were like several volumes. It was like a 4-box set of how to be the greatest newspaper salesperson that you could be, And I was like, wow, there's some training material. So I got those cassettes and started with episode 1 and listened to the whole thing over a period of weeks. And I was like, wow, this is cool. I could teach myself how to be a great sales rep, and started learning about that. Then I started buying books and, things like Dale Carnegie, how to win friends and influence people, and Og Mandino's Greatest Salesperson in the World, those kinds of books. And I started becoming a student of this stuff, because I learned that the more that I could learn, I could take some of that wisdom, some of those nuggets, and then apply it to my own life, lead myself, then be able to become more equipped to to lead others.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it sounds like it really set the foundation for you to have a learning orientation and the growth mindset that you talked about as a leader.
Because like I said, I was desperate. I'm like, what do? I don't know how to do this job, And so I was like, I got to figure this out. And it was pretty neat to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. What do you wish someone had, if someone had sat you down and said, okay, Jim, here are all the things that you need to know to be a successful leader. What do you wish someone would have told you or taught you in the beginning?
Wow. Probably the best lesson that I've learned over my career is the importance of empathy. Just trying to understand and have compassion for what people are going through. That's been a tough thing for me to learn. I was very hard-headed about that.
Really?
So, because I was always like, got to get the goal. We got to do this. We got to do this. And I was always driving, but never realized the way somebody was reacting may have been something to do not necessarily with me or their situation at work, but something completely, external to that. Maybe they had an argument with their significant other that morning, or maybe their mother was sick, and who knows what they're going through. But having that empathy, trying to put yourself in their shoes, and being able to say, okay, it doesn't have to happen today. We can wait till tomorrow, and that kind of thing. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I had to learn over time, and just was not very good at it at first.
Well, it's a different skill set that you need. I think in some ways it's almost easier to drive towards a goal, and you look at metrics and it's very objective. And then when you have to factor in, well, wait a second, this person isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you start digging into why that might be, it gets a lot more complicated.
Yeah. Well, I think that, there's a big difference between management and leading.
Yes.
Or managing and leading, put it that way. And I thought that leadership was managing, and like, hey, here's the rules, and we got to hit these deadlines. And especially in my early career, I was primarily in sales. And so, it's all about the number, and you're only as good as your last month and all those kinds of old adages. But understanding that, to equip people is a much better way of handling things than just having demands and deadlines and performance plans and those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think it was Simon Sinek. We'll have to double check that one, but I think Simon Sinek said processes are to be managed and people are to be led. And so, especially adults, you think about most adults don't enjoy being managed, but really led, which is a different way of thinking about it.
Too. Yeah, absolutely.
So I would love to hear, you talked about, your early career, and I know correct me if I'm wrong, but back in October of 2011, you started your own company, Interaction Media,
that's
right?
Yeah.
So compare and contrast for us, what is it like to lead in a company, someone else's company, versus leading in your own company?
Yeah, exactly. Well, when I first started, it was just me and my kitchen table and my computer, and that was pretty cool. Yeah. And
that's the self-leadership.
Yeah, self-leadership. And, I'll never forget the first day, because I always talk about discipline as part of that, that leading yourself. And the Bible tells us that, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. That's one of a proverb, and then it goes into talking about, being, in the Word and those kinds of things. But I always remember that no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. And so you have to do those things, especially starting out a company. The very first day of my first day on the job, in my kitchen, I woke up at 5 o'clock like I normally do, and went to the gym. I came home, showered, and put on a suit and tie, and sat at my kitchen table and said, okay, I'm starting this business. Let's go. And I had no idea what to do. But I had that discipline of like saying, I'm going to do this. This is not like going to be a cakewalk. And so from then on, and fast forward, we're into our 11th year now, and it's been an amazing journey. I will say that the most important thing about building a company, it's easy to start a company. I always say that you could do it like in 10 minutes on the internet, get your LLC set up or whatever. But to build a company and grow something over the long haul is very, very hard. Hard work. It takes discipline. It takes leadership. As I said, I'm not perfect, but the one thing that I'm super proud of is the team that I've assembled and the people that I get to work with every single day. That is my joy. Is like, I can't wait to get here every day, say, what can we do? How can we help people?
That's awesome.
I don't know if that answers the question fully, but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and just the sense of ownership that you have. I mean, to go from, really no team other than, what you were doing for your own business to having this great group of people. I mean, I've had the benefit of interacting with your team, and there's definitely an energy when you walk in this building that feels different, and you can tell it's a great group of people that are very mission-oriented, mission-driven.
That's cool. Yeah, well, I'm glad you noticed that. First of all, thank you for saying that. I think one of the things that's really cool about what we're doing is we're and this is kind of really more of a recent thing. So back in 2017, I bought my partner out, who joined me shortly after I started the company, about 3 months after. Bought him out, and I was like, I want to do something different. I want to create. We started out doing, interaction media as a different type of business that could be different, but we never really defined what that meant.
Right.
We just said we wanted to be different. Okay, so I was like, well, I'm on this journey. I want to find meaning in my life and in my work, and so I really started thinking, and I came across at that point, about mid 2017, I came across our mutual coach, Bruce Lane. He's here in West Virginia, runs a Convene group, which is an international group of business leaders, and it's faith-based. So when I came across that, I was like, this is exactly what I was looking for. I didn't know it. And so we've been on this journey since 2017 to really create a company and a culture here that is primarily looking at our business as ministry. Business is ministry. In other words, I'm not out in the mission fields of, Zimbabwe or Honduras. I'm in the mission fields of Star City, West Virginia. And we're trying to use our talents and abilities that we've been blessed with from our Creator to go out into the community, out into the world, and serve people the best that we can with those talents.
That's amazing.
That's what we do.
And I think that goes back to how we started this conversation when you were talking about your definition of leadership and influence. So, being able to empower everyone in this company to have the best influence they can based on the gifts that they've been given. And again, it's not so much about your physical location. You can have influence and impact.
We need help here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I love that this is your mission field, which is great.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, that's amazing. As I think about you and your journey, one of the reasons I was really excited and eager to interview you is because you are so often in the host chair.
Right.
You're the one asking the questions, but you are a leader and you do have a team of people that you're responsible for. So tell us about some of the things that are uniquely Jim about, how you lead at Interaction Media, and what are some things that you do that contribute to your success that might be different than how other leaders show up?
Well, yeah, that's good. It's hard for me to answer that because I don't like talking about those things, but I will. You put me in the hot seat. I think, I have a personal motto that I try to live by, and that is love God, value life, and serve others. And those three things really are center to who I am. I want to first and foremost put my faith in God, and so I pray a lot. My wife Rebecca and I, we do daily devotions. We pray all the time. We really try to, as best we can, give it to God. It's hard to do some days, and she's been a great teacher and an influence for me in that, just making sure that we have plans, but He's also got plans. So I think that, that's something. I think, so that's the love God part, value life. I enjoy life. I love getting out and doing adventures, whether it's with my buddies or my wife or my kids or whatever that might be. I've got a grandson now, and just enjoying life and the moments, because those things, those relationships we have, and I'm very intentional with those types of things too. We plan them out, and I just don't live my life kind of willy-nilly, free flow in it.
Right.
We have very definitive goals and what we're trying to do as a couple, and with our lives, and then also in the business. And then I think serving others as a big part. So I love just being out in the community. I'm a Rotarian. I serve on a leadership team of BNI here in West Virginia. I serve on the Pace Enterprises board of directors, and I've done that for years and years. I love working with people with special needs. My son Dylan has cerebral palsy, and so I coach a Miracle League baseball team, and so I'm a coach. That's one of my favorite roles in life, is coaching my Miracle League baseball team with people with all sorts of levels of disability, and we've been doing that. I think getting ready to start our 17th year this year.
Unbelievable.
So that's fun, and like I said, that's what, when I hear my name, Coach Jim, that makes me very happy.
Yeah.
And so I love doing those kinds of things. So business is important, money's important, building wealth is important, all those things. But most important thing is the relationships, that we have with these people out there in the community.
Yeah. And I think that authentically flows through, again, like I said, when you come into this building or when you interact with anyone on your team, and you, of course, but I mean, just the extension of you, it flows through everything here.
Well, that's
I can
cool.
definitely see it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the intent. And like I said, I'm not perfect in it. I'm still learning. I mean, I've got a lot to learn, for sure.
We all do.
I have a lot to learn.
It's just the journey. Well, Jim, I'm going to take a pause real quick just to recognize our sponsor for this podcast, Shine Consulting. Shine is a specialty coaching and consulting firm that's dedicated to helping people unleash and maximize their potential. Shine works with organizations to enhance their culture and strengthen leaders. They work with teams to optimize their performance, and they work with individuals one-on-one to achieve their goals, both personal and professional. If you'd like to learn more about Shine Consulting, then you can go to www.wv, as in West Virginia, shine.com, wvshine.com. All right. So Jim, as you think about, I know we've talked a little bit about the past and your leadership journey in the past, but I'm curious to kind of bring it more present now. Yeah. What types of things keep you up at night as a leader?
Wow. That's good. Something good to think about. Truthfully, I don't experience that very much, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's I used to, especially probably in the 5 to year 5 and 7 in our business. I was really, really worried a lot.
Yeah.
Because I was, it's just like when you're trying to grow a company, it's like, you've got, I was trying not to have debt in the business. I was trying to cash flow everything. I was trying to grow a team, but it seemed like every time we would bring on a new client, we would lose a client, for most of the time, just through attrition and no fault of our own, just it was the timing. But now it's like, we're in a spot in the business where it's like, I look at especially the last 3 or 4 years, especially during COVID. I mean, 2020 was a very, very weird year because I thought, are we going to be in business? And it was our best year ever. And then 2021 was our best year after that. And 2022 was off to a great start. So I keep thinking I used to think well, when's the other shoe going to drop? Right? We're on this run, but I can't, have this. I honestly, I had a scarcity mindset.
I was wondering.
Let's put it that way. Okay, that's a great way of looking at it. I kept thinking when is this going to end? When is the run going to go on?
Yeah.
But now I've really been trying to, and it's very hard for me to do because I'm not naturally this way, but to have that abundance mindset, saying that, everything that is supposed to happen is going to happen. We're going to continue to do our work that, like I mentioned, take our talents and abilities and go out and bless people with our work. And then we will get those blessings in return. And that's what's happened. Wow. And so it's hard for me to get worried these days, and we've been able to do some amazing things. And, I mentioned, paying off debt and everything. We run this company debt free. We have, cash reserves. We have great clients. We have a solid business, and the team that I have does incredible work.
Yes.
So it's like I just have to stay out of the way. So I would say, I've given you all that background. So I don't stay up, but I would say the one thing that I'm trying to do long term is to build a business that doesn't rely on me. And that's been a really hard thing to do because, primarily I bring the business in. Now I've got other team members who are bringing the business in.
Yes.
I've got other people that I always challenge them to say, hey, why don't you go ahead and make that call and see what you can do? And I've relinquished a lot of that, even though a lot of it's still on my shoulders. That has been a real hard thing to do for me to give up that aspect. And I'm not giving it up by any means, but it's like, enable them and empower, like, I hate to use that word because it gets overused, but to give them the tools and training and equip them to go out and do those things are really fantastic. So
yes, I'd like to dive a little deeper into that because
please,
only because I have witnessed a lot of leaders struggle with that, regardless of whether they own their own company or they're in more of a corporate, type context. It seems like sometimes the higher they get promoted or the higher they go, the more they need to start relinquishing some of that command and control and start delegating more. But a lot of leaders I know really struggle with that. So how did you get comfortable with backing off a little bit?
Yeah. So kind of going back to lifelong learning, I revisited the 22 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And I believe it's rule number 1 is the law of the lid. Wow. And John Maxwell talks about the fact that if you're not, if you're the leader and you're the lid, you're holding everything back, right? So just to say this is a jar and there's the lid and that's the leader, and you remove the lid, you remove yourself, and all of a sudden you can unleash everything that your team is capable of. And that's what I've been trying to, in my own humble way of like looking at that law of the lid, me being the lid, I've got to get stronger. I've got to become a better leader. I've got to do all the things that we're talking about, but also I have to get out of the way.
Yeah. And that can be really hard. That's where trust comes in, I think, a lot. And we haven't really talked too much about trust yet, but I would imagine that's a huge factor for you in terms of what your comfort level is in adjusting what you're working on versus what you have other people on the team work on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, just I have complete trust. There's a really significant feeling to know, like when you see team members walking out the door to go on a video shoot, and you're like, where are you guys going? Oh, I didn't even know that was happening. Even though I used to be able to or I used to have a mindset of saying, wow, that is I should know where they're going. But now it's to the point where they're just doing their thing. They look to me, I think, occasionally for approval and guidance, but I just love them and trust them to go out and do the work that they know needs to happen. And used to have to approve everything, and now I hardly do that, because I trust them.
Yeah. But I think that is, to me, that's the mark of a mature leader is you have the confidence and comfort level in yourself as well as your team to be able to say, it's okay. Yeah. I don't have to know exactly where they're going. I can trust again that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and that it's all for the benefit of the team.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah. Okay. So rumor has it that you have some gym-isms. And word on the street in this building is that you have some gym-isms. So I was wondering if you could share some gym-isms with the rest of us.
Well, I know that I had a real bad one for a number of years, and it was ASAP. Okay. Jim, when do you need this? ASAP. And I don't even know if everybody knew what ASAP as soon as possible. Yeah. Right? But I don't even know if everybody knew what that meant, but I would just say ASAP. ASAP. Let's go. Let's get it done. That's one. Can you share one? I don't know. I'd like to know some of these things.
Jim wants to poll the team, bring them in here and share with us.
that was one I really had to work on, though, because I knew it frustrated everybody. And how I weaned myself of it, instead of saying ASAP, they would say, Jim, when do you need this? And I would say, as soon as you can.
Well, I remember, have you read Essentialism by Greg McKeon, I think is his last name.
I haven't read it, no.
It's a great book, but one of the things that he says that just stood out to me so much is that priority was a singular word. It wasn't until I think the 1950s or 60s that it became priorities. Oh, wow. So there's a lot in there about, if everything is a priority or if everything has to be done ASAP, then nothing gets, prioritized to that level. So it just makes me think of that.
No, that's a great way of looking at it. So, I used to think everything was a priority. We got to get this done. We got to get this done. We got to get this done. They're like, well, what's the important thing? Yes, all of the above, right?
Right.
And so letting that go, I've got a fantastic project manager who's been with me for years and years, Dylan Sheldon, and he is he's masterful at that and making sure that the workflow is being prioritized correctly.
That's wonderful.
I think it has to be, because I'm not good at it, because I want everything to be number one.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I think, especially when you own your own business and you are responsible for doing everything, and regardless of whether you're good at it or not, I mean, what's that experience been like for you, especially as you started to hire a team of people, to be able to start assigning, maybe work based on other people's strengths or things that maybe weren't your strengths? I mean, what has that experience been like for you?
That's another great question, a great point, because I think that in the early days, it was fun. We'd go out and spend all day on a video shoot. I was like, wow, this is great. But then I realized, like, I can't do all that and build a business. I can't be everywhere. I can't go on. It's been a number of years since I've been on like a legit video shoot.
Right.
And I miss those days, to be honest with you, because that's why I started this business, was to be creative. But then I started, like, maybe you said the right word, is maturing as a business owner. And I realized that actually where my gifts need to be is building the team, making sure that the revenues are growing and the company's growing, profit margins are solid, but then also creating content. So I love to create. So this morning I wrote an article for the State Journal, and that'll become a blog, and we use that in multiple places. But I like being able to sit down first thing in the morning and write an article, create content, be able to do a podcast, to be able to do those kinds of things. I think that's really cool, and something I really enjoy. The other thing I would say is there's a sort of a mindset or a mind shift saying that only do what only you can do. And as I think that's been over the last couple of years, especially, has been my thing, is like, only do what only I can do. I can get other folks to do some of these other things, the tactical things and the technical things. I feel like, we just bought a bunch of new camera gear. I don't even know how to turn them on. I want to say I don't know how they, but that's okay. I don't have to know that. Okay. I have to know how much they cost and how we're going to make money with them, but I don't necessarily need to know how to be a camera operator.
Yeah, that's true. But that's important. Again, that goes back to that maturity piece, because again, you could get easily, when you started your own business and it was all up to you in the very beginning, you could easily stay in that mindset of, I have to be the one to do everything. I have to know how to turn the cameras on. I have to control it all.
Yeah. In order to grow, you have to relinquish something. You can't do everything, right?
Absolutely. So you were talking earlier about just having a leader and learning mindset and being open in terms of trying to evolve your own leadership style, your leadership brand. So what are some of the things that you're doing currently? Are there certain books that you like to read or podcasts that you like to listen to, just to kind of help continue to grow as a leader? Yeah,
definitely. I try to read. I like to revisit some of the classics. I just read As a Man Thinketh last month. That was one of the books I read last month, and I hadn't read that for a long time. I think about podcasts are such a great tool, because truthfully, sometimes, well, let me just say it this way. Sometimes being an owner of a business is a lonely world, right?
Yes.
You maybe have a significant other, spouse, or maybe you have a business coach you could talk to, but oftentimes it's like, where do you turn for recharging your batteries? I like to be out in nature. Being on a trout stream is one of my favorite things to do, in the springtime, this time of year. I think some of the podcasts I'm listening to right now, I love EntreLeadership. I'm a big Ramsey? I'm a big Ramsey fan, because it kind of transformed the way I look at the business from a financial standpoint. Like I said, being debt-free, cash flowing everything, grow at the speed of cash, all those kinds of principles. I love that. It's real simple, basic stuff, and may not be for everybody, but for me, it works great in my personal life and in the business life. The second thing, the other podcast that I really love listening to is a guy by the name of Brian Buffini, with the Buffini Group. He has a podcast that's called The Good Life. Okay, it used to be called the Brian Buffini Show, but he just recently rebranded it. It's all about the good life, and it's about leadership. It's about business. It's about your personal life, but it's all kind of intertwined. And he's just a great guy. He was an Irishman, immigrant to the United States. Has a wonderfully successful real estate coaching business. And I got turned on to him a while back. So those are two podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis, is every episode, so I'm tuned into those guys. And then, I like to, I got my degree in journalism, back in 1988. And so I am still a journalist. And so I am a news junkie. So I like to read, news, especially on leadership topics and, things like that, business topics and stuff like that. I really enjoy that.
That's good that you're taking the time, because I do think great leadership requires intentionality. It requires investment, taking the time. And we don't always do that, because a lot of times I think leadership is just another thing to do on the to-do list. It's,
absolutely.
I have to run a business, or I have to make sure these things happen. And oh, by the way, I'm also responsible for some people at the same time. And, really to be great at it, I think you do have to take the time to invest in it.
Yeah. And I feel like, there's not like personal time and business time and me time. It's just like time. And I just like to try to interweave everything into a day, try to maximize the moments. One other thing that kind of pops into my brain too is something I started. I mentioned BNI. It stands for Business Networking International, founded by Dr. Ivan Meisner like 20 some years ago. The recipient of the Maxwell Leadership Award a couple of years ago, Dr. Ivan Meisner. I actually had a chance to have breakfast with him one day, and it was a wonderful day. But anyhow, in BNI here in Morgantown, I started about, I think it was close to 7 years ago, this thing called the Mentor Mastermind, and we meet every Tuesday from noon to 1. Here in Morgantown. It's a lunch meeting, and it's an ad hoc group of people that are in our chapters. We typically have 60 members in our chapter, roughly. These are all business leaders, entrepreneurs, small business owners, that kind of thing. And so we have it's just kind of like an ad hoc group that meets. We have an agenda. And the agenda is there's 4 or 5 minutes of teaching at the beginning of that, and then we just have a discussion on that topic. And it's all related to business, growth, leadership, networking, those kinds of topics. And I led that. I started it. It's like the only one in the world, because BNI is a global organization. This was authorized by BNI National here in the United States, and I think it's still the only one that exists. But we used the principle of a mastermind that was first, Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich. His book, I think it was written like in 1937 or something. But he formulated that word mastermind. And it's basically 2 or more people getting together to create the third or mastermind, right? So this mastermind is fantastic, and that has been a game changer. So now you mentioned the mastermind topic that we have on Positively West Virginia, where we bring business leaders from around the state on a 1-hour call every Friday, and so it's kind of spun off into another thing that we're doing, but that's just a great way to learn from people. Just me just interviewing, just like you're doing here.
Absolutely.
You learn from people and having conversation and that kind of thing. So
I mean, that's great though, because you're surrounding yourself with people and opportunities and different experiences, and you're looking at, you're not just reading books or not just listening to podcasts you're doing a variety of things that just kind of opens your mind to different experiences. And they all feed off each other. So I might read something, and in the mastermind, I'll talk about that topic, and then people are thinking like, wow, how did he come up with that? Well, I just heard it this morning on a podcast. I'm giving my trade secrets away here. While I was driving over here. So I did not know that you started that BNI mastermind, and it's the only one, it's pretty around. Cool. What got you on that path?
I think I just had read again. I've read it numerous times. Think and Grow Rich. To me, it's like a wonderful book, and it's not just about being, monetarily rich.
Right.
It's about being rich in your wisdom and knowledge and your soul and all those types of things. But I think I just read that, and I was like, we should do something like this. And I said, I'm going to start it and see what happens. So I wrote up a little plan and submitted it, and we started it, and it's still going strong. It's amazing. Even during COVID, we did it. We never missed a week.
Oh, that's
I think
awesome.
It's been like, I can't remember how many years, 7 years at least. of doing
See, that's leadership right there. Just, taking the initiative and having influence and impact.
And what's funny is every once in a while somebody will say, hey, Jim started this mastermind. I don't take credit for it or anything, but it's kind of neat to be like, this thing's still going on. Now somebody else leads. I don't even lead it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, somebody else leads. I still go to the meetings, but it's pretty
really cool. That's quite a feather in your cap, Jim.
Well, it's kind of neat.
Very cool.
One of those little things.
Well, I'm curious, because you have had an opportunity to meet and talk to so many different leaders, if you were able to give other leaders advice just based on everything that you've learned, what kind of advice would you give a leader?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to understand, why you're doing what you're doing, like what is the purpose here? Because it's, especially let's just say in the workplace, right? If you're in a leadership role in your company, maybe you're not the owner, maybe you're a manager or a director or something like that. Understanding what is it that you're trying to accomplish and why are you here? Is it just to get a paycheck? If it's just to get a paycheck, well then maybe you need to do some thinking on that. But we have one life, all right? I mean, we're here for a short period of time. When we're gone, they're going to throw dirt on us and be sorry for a couple of days and then move on, right? So what can we do to impact? How can we utilize our time here on earth to have an impact, positive impact on the people around us? So, take that same philosophy in your family. Are you just going through the motions, or are you actually living an intentional plan to have an impact, not just on your spouse or your significant other or your child, but maybe your other family members, maybe your neighbors, maybe your community? What's that one thing you can do each day to leave your mark?
Wow, that's amazing. I think we're ending it right there. I don't think you could. I don't think there are any more questions or conversation that can top that. But I think that's an amazing piece of advice to give other people, other leaders, but just everyone to hear that. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Well, me, Jim, and anyone else that knows me knows I like to have fun. So I wanted to end our time together with a lightning round of questions. So how this is going to work is I'm going to set my timer here, but you have 60 seconds to answer as many questions as possible. So these are quick. Okay.
Great. Like one word answers.
Yeah, as quick as you can. Okay. Let me pull up my list here and we'll get. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it. I'm scared, but I'm ready.
All right, let me get the timer going here. All right, here we go. Okay. Which of the 4 seasons best fits your personality?
Spring.
Okay.
I was born in April.
Oh, happy almost birthday. What is your most used emoji in text?
I would say the smiley face.
Okay, very good. What book, song, movie, or podcast has had the greatest impact on your life?
Oh my gosh, song. Praise You in the Storm by Casting Crowns. I actually saw them play that while it was storming.
Oh, wow. Okay, we're going to have a sidebar because that's a big song for me too. Okay. Something that surprises people about you the first time they hear it.
They did not know that I was a drummer in a rock band.
Yes, that's my answer for you. What's the name of the band?
I have several. The last one was called Albuterol and the Inhalers. And it was a group of doctors, and I was the only guy who was not a doctor.
That's great. Okay. Other than you, who owns a wood-engraved Jim Matuga pen?
I would say Laura Siebold.
Yes. Good answer. All right. Well, thanks for doing that with us.
Was that good?
Yeah, you did good. That was. I know.
It seemed like
it's
5
a lightning
seconds.
round. I know.
Oh my gosh.
It goes
That's
fast.
great.
Well, Jim, I appreciate your time today. I
good.
think, it is so important that we take the time to talk about leadership and to learn more from other leaders. And you've done an amazing job, not only giving some great insight to all who will listen to this podcast, but also I just know you personally, and I know that you show up every day as someone who has a great positive impact. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Too.
I appreciate it. Everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yes, everything rises and falls on leadership. Okay. Well, thank you.
You're doing a great job too.
Well,
thank you. This was fun.
Yeah, this was fun. Okay, we're going to have more great leaders on the show to talk to and learn from. And I know you and I both like to learn, so this will be a good opportunity for both of us.
Job.
So
great
thank
vision.
you. Thank you for being here. And
I'll
just close the conversation today just by reminding everyone that's listening here that you all have value. So so it's important to keep in mind that everybody's been given individual gifts and special abilities. And my challenge to you is just to know what those gifts are and to use them every day to the best of your abilities so that you can have positive impact and influence on everyone you interact with. And so that's a wrap today for Leadership Rediscovered. Thank you for your time. And until we meet again, shine bright, everyone.